When I wrote about transparency challenges in retail media networks for a Forbes column last week, I knew there were significant performance gaps between industry-leading retail media networks and the rest of the pack. But new data from the Path to Purchase Institute in partnership with TransUnion reveals just how massive this divide really is. And it's a wake-up call for retailers. The retail media performance gap is even wider than we think. Let's jump in. Good morning and welcome to the Retail Media Breakfast Club. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern, I bring you candid and real discussions in the world of retail media and marketplaces in just 10 minutes. So bring your own cup of coffee and we'll get smarter about retail media together. Among some other interesting data points, the Path to Purchase Institute and TransUnion report included a section where participants rated the retail media networks that they manage across a few different factors. And the ratings from these participants showed that this industry is splitting into clear winners and, well, everyone else. Let's have a look at the numbers, and I'll keep this simple for the purpose of this being a podcast where you can't see these numbers pop up, but definitely check out the report in the show notes to get some more details on the specific retailers that are mentioned. So Amazon, not surprisingly, is at the top of the pack with about 2/3 of advertisers rating Amazon as excellent or very good for both targeting and measurement. Their poor ratings consistently under 10% across all key metrics. And that's really a superstar grade in this report card. But here's where it gets interesting, is when we look at the long tail here. Take Dollar General, for example. Almost 80% of advertisers rated their ROI with Dollar General as fair to poor. Ouch. Or look at BJ's, where 70% of advertisers are giving a thumbs down to both measurement and ROI. And we're seeing similar patterns with other networks too. Albertsons and HEB are both seeing around 60 to 65% of advertisers rate them poorly on crucial capabilities like measurement and data sharing. There are some bright spots in the middle tier though, and by that I mean outside of Walmart and Amazon, which are the superstar, grade A students. Kroger is making solid progress. They're hitting 50% positive ratings for targeting and measurement. And Instacart is not too far behind, with about half of advertisers giving them high marks for both ROI and sales growth. So what does this sort of bifurcated report card tell us about the industry? Well, for advertisers, the message is clear. The data backs up what many of you have suspected about the vast performance gaps between top tier and emerging retail media networks. And this prompted me to go back to an excellent Digiday article about the transparency issues in this space. Several media executives spoke to Digiday on condition of anonymity. And many of these retail media networks are asking advertisers to operate on blind trust, essentially, which is a tough ask when the performance data looks like this. And I'll just quote from this article: "Retailers are offering retail media solutions that aren't technically retail media," said a media executive who asked to remain anonymous. They, as in the retailers, are co-opting dollars and sending them to another large enterprise agency, a holding company, network of agencies, that executive said. Media buyers have to have totally blind trust that a retailer is adhering to industry standards as opposed to grading their own homework. End of quote. And I'll share another example that came to me from Jordan Whitmer, who's now the managing director of retail media at the agency Nectar First. And he shared with me how he was working with one major retail media network back in 2023, whose response when advertisers started identifying poor performing placements based on really bad viewability metrics, instead of improving the quality of those placements, the retailer simply removed the ability for advertisers to select specific placements, instead bundling these packages up and saying you have to buy the whole thing, and completely obscuring the poor performance of these low visibility ad placements. So this is the kind of stuff that's going on, eroding trust, these issues with transparency, and that's why these retail media networks are getting low scores on their report cards. This huge gap in perceived performance and transparency and measurement becomes even more critical as the industry pushes into off-site advertising. So we're going to see more of this, and this is a particularly concern when it comes to measurement and transparency. At the end of the day, the networks that can't demonstrate a clear return on investment for their data and advertising capabilities are going to struggle. The path forward is pretty clear. It runs straight through improved measurement capabilities, better data transparency, and demonstrated ROI. The question is, which networks are going to make the investments needed to close this gap? In an industry that's finally hitting its first growth slowdown, these massive growth numbers that we've seen are starting to come off a little bit. These factors from this report about retail media networks are not just nice to haves anymore. They're going to determine which networks survive and thrive. Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Retail Media Breakfast Club. We meet here every day at 6 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to subscribe and get your daily dose of insights, trends, and hot takes in the world of retail media and marketplaces.